we go. All right, we've been talking about Hartzell propellers. Well, that's at least where we left off yesterday, and said there were two basic designs. We had the steel and the compact. And I said the funny thing about it is the compact is actually a little fatter. Nothing personal. And the steel one is actually the skinnier version, if you ask me, which didn't. So there you go. All right, so we said the two designs. We had the steel hub propeller, which has exposed operating mechanism, and then we had the compact with no exposed operating mechanism. And that's going to be starting right in the middle of something. Khan Academy, this is not. All right. Someday. All right, let's talk about the steel hub. Well, if I follow along in my notes that I made here, first thing I put is come in both a counterweight version and non-counterweight. But the problem with that, we've been talking about what classifications of propellers are we working with pretty much? Constant speed, what? Non-counterweighted, non-feathering. So while it's true the steel hub is going to come in both, if it does have counterweights, then it's going to fall into what category and what kind of airplane? Feathering, multi-engine, and it's got counterweights. So, but we'll just throw that up there to talk about it. So, and while we're here, we'll say the counterweighted prop, as a reminder, uses oil to do what? Right. Decrease, I'm going to say pitch because it's easier to do. Decrease pitch. Uses oil to decrease pitch. And then the non-counterweight uses oil to increase pitch. We do have in the hangar a couple examples of the steel hub. One of them's stuck in a feather position, and you need air pressure to get it out of feather. When you look at that propeller, take a minute to go around to the back of the Bonanza and look at the PT6 sitting there at the propeller and tell me if you see any similarities. I think you will.
How did you fix that one?
What?
I think me and Ivan fixed that one.
Fixed it?
Yeah.
What?
I think we muscled it and now it's stuck the other way.
No, that was not me.
Ivan
did it. No, anything was okay.
The one that's painted blue or the one that's silver, the silver on the yellow?
I think it was silver.
Well, we'll see.
It was stuck and every time we moved it a little bit, it'd go back normal and then until the front.
What I'm talking about has an air fitting on the back.
Oh, okay.
All right, the compact hub. That is the more modern style. And it uses, oops, that's I. There we go, uses an aluminum hub. And well, what can we say? Basically, it's the same thing. I mean, we can keep writing it over and over, but let's not. If it's got counterweights, the counterweights are for, what are the counterweights going to tell me?
Goes to high pitch.
Take centrifugal force is going to take it to high pitch, oil pressure to low pitch. All right. I like the maintenance part. All right, so we talked a little bit about greasing. So let me see, compact props. Compact props require greasing. And what did you discover today with your assignment? All right. So I asked Jonathan and and company to look up the instructions for greasing the Hartzell propeller that we have attached to the Lycoming.
It says every 100 hours or 12 months, whatever comes first. But if you are operating the propeller less than 50 hours within 6 months, you actually have to re-grease it every 6 months.
Okay?
Then on top of it, depending on where you are operating it, if you're operating it in salt, water kind of environment, whatever, so I guess close to the ocean,
Okay.
then you actually always have to re-grease it every 6 months. And the amount with which you have to re-grease it is take the fittings out.
All right, so here's the part. So to grease it,
Yeah.
we have the hub, very, very crude hub. The blades coming out of each side. And we've got one grease zerk here, and one down here, and one up here, and one over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Depending on if it's a tractor or a puller,
okay.
you will either take the top or the bottom one out.
So we have a tractor, so.
You have a tractor.
Wait a minute, did it say top or bottom? I don't think it said top or bottom.
No.
It said front or rear.
Front or rear.
Okay,
But
because
I was looking at the picture.
yes. If I look at a top-down version of this, it's got a split down the middle. One grease zerk is here, and one is here, and then you turn it around, and it's the opposite. All right, so tractor style. So we're going to, so I'll write this down. Tractor style. So what does it remove? What?
It's actually counterclockwise or clockwise. The revised version.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go with what you got. General instructions.
General instructions.
Remove one. Remove one of the.
Remove
so-
one, and then
so that one.
grease it with 1 fluid ounce, which
Okay.
is equivalent to 6 pumps.
Okay, one.
You guys got it? That's what it is, right?
Okay, so you add
6
1
pumps
fluid ounce,
with-
which
with
is
the-
6 pumps of a
With
grease
a regular
gun.
grease gun.
Yep.
And then put it back
Put it in.
on. And then it also depends on, there's a little sticker on the
Mhm.
hub.
Which tells you
tells
which
you
grease.
which grease to use.
Yes.
So they were recommending to use Aeroshell number 6, which doesn't have temperature restrictions. If you use Aeroshell 5, which you could also use, and you have to label it, and you can't use it below -40 degrees Celsius.
All right.
That's
So what do we got? Very good, thank you. Compact props require greasing. So 1, follow manual. That's the most important thing. Remove 1 grease fitting. And lubricate. And it is apply grease to the fitting, nearest there we go, nearest the leading edge. And that's for a tractor style, which would be all normal props. Use the grease as shown on sticker. What if the sticker's gone? Well, then I would call the prop shop and say, what do I do now? And C, it is 1 fluid ounce or 6 pumps. All right, so let's think about what happens if you, not us, somebody else, not in this class, like, oh look, grease zerks. I should definitely put some grease in this prop. And so without taking out one of the grease zerks, they see 4 of them and think, well, I'll put some in this one and that one and that one and that one. Where is the grease going to go? Well, it will go into the hub, and it's going to pressurize it, and if there's enough room in there, then it'll be fine, I suppose. But eventually, it's going to do what?
It'll seal up.
It'll come out of the seals of the prop, and it'll roll down here, and then you have bad seals, and you got to get it cleaned and resealed, and that'll probably lead to an overhaul. Who knows? So that's really bad. So don't do that. All right. One of the things I like about the compact hubs is that you can adjust the blade angle.
You can do that with the steel ones too. The steel ones, you loosen the clamp, and then the same way you adjust your ground adjustable, you actually adjust it.
I don't like doing those. 'Cause
But it says in the
I know that, but this one's really easy.
yeah.
And normally I don't like doing a whole lot with props. It's little, because it's just a lot going on. But I can adjust the low pitch stops right here. Right there. There's a screw. It's usually not a bolt. It's usually an internal wrench. And a stop nut. Undo the stop nut, turn it in, and you can adjust the low pitch stops. So you can actually adjust it here instead of at the governor. Don't do it unless you follow directions, but it can be done. All right. Blade angle adjustment. Let's see. 1. Steel hub. Props. Steel hub props can have low pitch adjusted by adjusting the blade clamps. Steel hub props can be adjusted by adjusting the blade clamps. Although the range stays the same, so you gotta be careful because it brings the back with it. So you don't want to do too much of that. I could write that. Because the range stays the same. This also changes the high pitch. And to the compact. Compact hub can have low pitch. Adjusted by rotating the low pitch stop on the front of the cylinder by rotating the low pitch stop at the front. There we go. So what have we really, which props we talked about? Pretty much, well, we talked about the Hartzell, which is what we talked about there. We had the McCauley, and then Hamilton counterweighted. All right. And let's bring it up to feathering props. But before we do that, we'll jump over to here. Finish up on this. So we had Hartzell, did the steel and the compact. There's the inner workings. So what do you suppose this one is? Steel hub. Why do you say steel hub? Boy, it's hard to tell with that thing. Because?
Because the mechanism is outside.
Because we have some mechanism here, but I don't see any up here.
It's on the other side.
No, I don't know. Maybe that one's a little hard to tell. All right, but we have, gosh, we didn't even get into this. This one's feathering, and I can tell because the distance between here and here. So we'll talk about that one. Another Hartzell. Oh, this one's easy to tell. This one is compact, bud. Is it feathering or non-feathering? Yeah, it's feathering. Well, first of all, because it's got counterweight, so it's going to go on what? multi-engine, and the distance between here and here is much greater. If it was very short right here, then it'd be non-feathering. So I think we'll be looking at these in a little bit. There we go. We can look at that. So we talked about the Hartzell steel hub non-feather and the Hartzell compact non-feather. Do we have counterweights? No. What moves the prop to low pitch? Centrifugal twist. Centrifugal twist. What moves it to high pitch? Oil pressure, oil pressure. You seeing a pattern? I hope so. All right, feathering props. Oh, what's the purpose of a feathering prop, which you've really already talked about? Why do I want it to feather? What's that? Keep it for windmilling. What else? So windmilling, huh?
Reduce drag.
Drag, okay.
Prop motoring engine.
Prop motoring the engine. I like that one. Multi-engine. Aircraft. Multi-engine aircraft require feathering props. To reduce drag. Should that engine quit? It's very important to feather the engine that actually quit and not the other one. So feathering. What feathering means is to rotate the propeller about 90 degrees, which is the blade directly into the wind, in order to stop the engine from windmilling. So feathering a prop means to rotate the prop to about 90 degrees. Let me see. 90 degrees, yeah, 90 degree blade angle. Which is blade directly into the air. Well, that doesn't make sense, but directly into the, what should we put here? Relative wind is perfect. I like that. Directly into the relative wind. And the relative wind is coming straight at the aircraft because the engine is not moving. If the aircraft is moving, the engine's not moving. If the engine were moving, then relative wind would be somewhere else, and why would you be feathering it, right? All right, directly into the relative wind. I like that. In order to stop engine from windmilling. I don't know of any piston aircraft that has a feathering prop. It's single engine, so very few, if any, piston, single engine piston, single engine piston, single engine piston. Boy, that gave me a bad sentence. Very few, if any, single engine piston type aircraft use feathering props. However, turbine engines do. So that would not be so uncommon. And why does everything go backwards once we get into feathering props? I mean backwards, the airplane go backwards, but why? So we have this whole problem. I mean, wouldn't it just be a lot easier to say, okay, governors always make props go to high pitch and centrifugal twisting force always makes the prop go to low pitch. Wouldn't that be a lot easier?
Sure, but that's not how it works.
Sure, but what? It's
That's not how it works.
not how it's not. Well, why not? Why couldn't we make it that way?
Because now you have, most likely you have counterweights on it, which is usually used for feathering.
Well, they had to put the counterweights on. Well, why not? Why couldn't we just use oil pressure to make this thing go all the way to feather?
Because we won't have it.
Because why?
We won't have it.
Because what if you lost oil pressure? What if you lost oil? Exactly. I will get into that later. So yes, so everything goes a little bit backwards. Well, I don't know. Then I guess you have to ask the question. Then on singles, why didn't they make the singles work that way? That oil pressure brings it to a low pitch and just let centrifugal force off counterweights, everything go to high pitch. I mean, why do they go back and forth?
I think some of the steel hub parts are actually worth it.
For turbines. Talking piston. So why not? I hear about myself.
Hard to start them when it's feathered.
You can put a feathering lock on it. So just because it's a feathering, it's a good thought. But you're right. But just because it feathers doesn't mean it goes to feather. So I'm talking about single engines.
It's kind of an easier design, first off. You don't need counterweights really.
I think I don't have the actual answer to this. I'm looking for some answers from you guys, some thoughts.
Well, for a twin, you would want one engine to feather for the fact so the other one's not working harder to drive.
Right, so that's all true. We kind of established that all makes sense how a twin works, but now I'm saying, well, why did they make the single work the other way around? Why couldn't a single then just follow the same convention, use the same prop, say, okay, but maybe don't put as much, I'd call it throw, put as long as a piston and cylinder together, and it wouldn't necessarily have to feather, but it could at least go to high pitch, and then oil pressure brings it back to low pitch. Tyler's got an idea.
If we discussed earlier about it easier for the engine to motor in low.
That's a whole nother thing, though. That's a whole other thing. Because even if you have a twin, okay, so your concern is trying to start it in high pitch, okay?
Less weight. Because
Right?
you have
Oh, hang on.
counterweight.
Right? Okay, but let's look at a twin. Do you start a twin in high pitch?
No.
They're in low pitch.
But you have to have a feather. If a twin engine fails, isn't your primary concern keeping the aircraft under control?
Okay.
And starting
We discussed that.
Yes.
Where-
In a twin, we've established that it has to feather, and everything about a twin makes sense.
Yeah, but
Saying, why does the single engine aircraft not follow the same convention? Why does a single engine aircraft have to work backwards from a twin? Why couldn't the single engine aircraft all have counterweights and all just use the same governor that goes the same way?
then it would be extra weight because the blade itself is already designed that it always wants to go to a low pitch.
Okay.
So to put counterweights on is really only the means for a multi-engine to bring it out of a low pitch position if I'm losing oil. But for a single engine, since every weight which I put on the aircraft really counts, I mean the counterweights, yeah, maybe they are not that much, but it's a little bit extra weight, which is not really necessary, I guess.
That's a really good thought. In fact, I wish I had the statistics at hand. I don't. But when they were building the 777, and I imagine they did this on a lot of them, I just know the 777, when they did this, there's these formulas about how much, the 777, what else? Oh, it was actually it was the what's the Lightning II? F-35? F-35. When they say it literally cost its weight in gold to manufacture. And so they get done with the prototypes, and they figure out how much this thing is going to weigh. Then they stop and they go back and they have these. They had some sort of weird contest where it was anybody who could save an ounce. Like the amount of money they got was incredible. So you're talking ounces. Ounces matter. So if everybody can give up an ounce, so yeah, I agree wholeheartedly that number one, it's less complicated. Get rid of the counterweights. One less thing to break. It's less weight. And when you look at talk to people about, when they get serious about their aircraft and weight savings, you start looking down at props. Hey, I want that prop. Why do you want that prop? Because it weighs a few pounds less. So, do you have a thought?
No.
No?
I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
Quite different.
Glide distance. Ooh, now we got something going on here. Explain that.
If you have it in defaulting to high pitch and you're not actually spinning the engine,
Right?
it's not, it's creating more, it's going to be, it won't be necessarily feathered, but it'll be higher pitch.
Okay.
And then when it does go to feather, it'll be fine, but it'll reduce how far you can go.
Okay, so let's think about that. Two airplanes side by side, and the guy in the right-hand plane, he's the guy who did all the fuel management for this flight. It's a flight of two, and he messed up. So they both quit at the same time because they both lost fuel, right? So guy on the right side, he's got a conventional aircraft with single engine where his engine dies, the prop's going to go to high or low pitch?
High pitch. Or low pitch. sorry.
Low pitch. All right. The other guy, he's thinking, man, he got a good deal out of Kenny Face on a counterweighted propeller. Doesn't belong on his engine, but he doesn't care. So his prop's going to go to what? High pitch. So they're both gliding at the same. Right? They want to keep, formation flight even all the way down. So guy on the right with the conventional, supposed to be prop, his RPM says, let's say 2,000 RPM. What's the guy on the left? What's the RPM?
Zero at some point. Because he goes all the way into feather.
No, it's non-feathering. It's not feathering. It's just counterweighted.
It's going to be 1,000.
So it depends on how many degrees the pitch.
What's that?
It depends on how many degrees of pitch it can change. Because 1 degree of pitch is 50 to 90 RPM.
Well, it depends on the further.
What's that?
The glide with the counterweight is going to glide a lot further.
You think the counterweight's going to glide further?
Yeah.
It depends on what the stall speed of this plane is.
Oh, now you're just getting way too carried away. They're both exactly the same. The thing I was thinking in my head was, wouldn't the guy if they're going the exact same speed in a dive, power off, wouldn't the guy with more pitch, wouldn't his engine be going faster? Or be going slow?
It depends on the resistance on the engine. You have more pitch, so it's slightly faster, no?
All right, never mind.
Perfect answer for why they don't make single engine.
People at home are like dying. They're like, oh my God, this is the worst
The
freaking day.
procedure of single engine to glide the furthest is the prop slope.
Yeah, no, it helps cure their install.
The prop pulled it back? Okay, so that blows that theory out of the water. Okay. Damn, we had a good theory. So should have said something sooner. So it blows that theory right out of the. So we're right back to who knows why.
The engineers didn't design it that way.
Because the engineers designed it that way.
That you pull it back.
He just told me.
Is that what?
Yeah, he said for emergency procedure for best glide in a single engine is to pull your propeller to low RPM.
Yeah, less drag. Makes sense.
Best drag?
I think so, because when the angle is very low,
Uh-huh.
it's like a bar, it's like a stop.
Oh, that's right. Yep. It's really
But when you think about, like, I mean, I'm not saying that all the way feathered would be, all the way flat would be good, but
feather. No, his plane doesn't go to feather because it's single engine.
but when you're gliding,
Yeah.
like every plane has a optimal rate of climb.
Right, and they all have an optimal. I get all that.
Yeah. So you'd have to have like a balance kind of.
No, according to him, there's no balance. It's high pitch versus low pitch. Which one glides further?
And if you even have the choice, because with most single engine, you actually need the oil pressure in order to increase your blade angle. So once your engine quits and you're losing oil, I mean, yeah, you can pull the blue handle all the way back, but nothing happens.
Not if you don't have any oil. Anyways, right back where we started. I guess
Let's
the,
just take Juan's plane out. He runs.
he didn't need to. He just told us the answer. The question is, why did the engineers make it this way? The best we can come up with so far is it weighs a little bit less and it's less complicated. Right? That's, I don't know.
Also
Unless,
don't really care if it feathers or not whenever you lose oil pressure because
okay, let's get this. Should I write this? Just because it has counterweights.
Must be a twin.
Oops, counter, W-E-I-G-H. Counterweights. Well, there's the door. Nobody's keeping you here. Just because it has counterweights
Was it done?
does not mean it feathers.
So what you're saying is,
So what I'm saying is, Just because it has counterweights does not mean it has to feather.
I think I'm starting to get it, Kevin.
Chances are it does.
But not always.
So, anyway, that's what I get for trying to have a decent conversation with you guys. It just goes to hell in a handbag. 10 minutes later, it's like, because it feathers? Oh, no. All right. Oh, man. I don't know.
No, let's restart. Let's go this again. Start from the top.
Start from the top. Turn off the recording. This didn't go well. All right. Well, geez, do I want to write this? I don't know. In the event of an engine failure or loss of oil, the prop needs to feather without the use of engine oil. Yeah, I better write that. And note, okay, in the event of an engine failure or loss of oil, the prop needs to feather without the use of oil. From the governor. That was never in dispute. If you relate to the conversation. That is why twins are set up the way twins are. That is a given. That's an easy one to figure out. There is not much involved in thinking that one through. If you have a loss of engine oil or a failure of the engine, you must be able to feather your twin. That's why they're made that way. I'm afraid.
I just found that the reason a single
Did you Google it?
feather is because, yes.
Not feather.
It does not feather is because if there's governor failure, you can still fly the plane. Or if there's governor failure and it feathers, it will feather and you can't fly the plane anymore.
Okay. Just because it has counter.
So let me
Okay,
get
we
this
weren't
straight.
really talking, so thank you though. But on a single, my question never had anything to do with feather.
Right. The reason.
Why didn't it just go to high pitch?
Because of the governor failure, if the governor fails and it goes straight to high pitch, you can't fly the plane if the engine's still running. Where if the governor does fail in a single, it will go automatically to low pitch and you can still fly the plane.
Okay, let me ask an expert. Juan,
I'm not sure, but
what would happen if your plane got stuck in low pitch?
no, we can still run it. You need to be gentle with the engine.
Okay, that's my thought. So what's manifold pressure going to do?
Super low.
It's going to go real low. And what happens when our manifold pressure gets too low?
Use horsepower.
It's not a horsepower is not my problem.
A lot of icing.
Torque on
Icing? Did you say icing?
It's probably warmer out there.
Oh, I'm sorry. You weren't talking about what happens to the prop. You were just making a statement about yourself. He's over there icing up because Sarah's turned it down to.
Brag.
All right. Well, I don't know. Where were we? This is horrible.
We were talking about how the counterweight's gonna let it feather.
Yeah. Oh, so not feathering. So it's a single, didn't feather, something broke, it went to high pitch. Everybody follow me so far?
I'm getting it.
And why didn't it feather? Because it can't, all right? Not on the single. So
What's your stop?
there goes to the high pitch stop. Can you still fly it?
yeah.
Yes. What's manifold pressure going to do? Not going to go down. It's going to get closer to atmospheric, or is it going to go more towards vacuum? My gosh, you should know this.
RPM goes down, so our manifold pressure goes all the way out.
As RPM goes down, there's less time for the atmospheric pressure to. He's going to hit me. Let's get the maximum glide configuration. He's just proving that he's right, which I never doubted him. Propeller, low RPM, right there. So that's Raytheon Aircraft Company for the model G36. So, but that's glide, engine off. Now we're talking about the engine still works. And, well, I really should have never started this. Because it opened up so much. Now I realize that the whole class doesn't know what happens when you have high manifold, which way manifold pressure is going to go.
You better go to the simulator.
So manifold pressure is going to go up. Yeah, all right. Manifold pressure is going to go up. And then, well, I can't write it here because everybody know. And then when manifold pressure goes up and RPM goes down,
You have a lot of torque on
that can cause
Detonation.
detonation. Yeah, very good. All right, that can cause detonation. And it's really hard on the engine. So,
But if you have high manifold pressure, you don't have any oil pressure.
if you have high manifold,
If the engine is not running anymore.
we were talking about something like, all right, so let's think. Oh boy, if the speeder spring breaks, what's the prop think happened? What's the prop going to try and do? It's going to try and, it thinks it's in an overspeed, so it's going to try and slow down. So it's similar thought to that. I don't know, the governor just sheared off in there, just stopped working, something, that bolt that you guys left inside of the, are you Googling the answers over there, Brett, or are you just talking to your girlfriend? Okay.
I was making sure that, if you have counterweights, it doesn't have to go to feather.
Good.
Make sure that's right.
So we got it. So you're good over there.
Got it.
All right. Forget about it. I don't even know what to do now. All right. You guys are making me crazy.
So your scenario, you have an engine running, but a dysfunctional governor that set the propeller to high pitch.
Okay, so here's to follow my. If the governor on a single, that bolt that you guys left in the engine finds its way through the screen down the thing, not gonna happen. Gets into the governor, seizes up the governor. The shear shaft is gonna go. The governor's gonna fail to move, right?
Yeah.
On a single, the way it's normally designed, what's the prop gonna do?
low pitch.
Low pitch. All right. What is manifold's going to be fine? You're going to be acting it's kind of like more like a fixed pitch, but kind of a flat fixed pitch. So, all right. So you don't have this manifold pressure problem. Turn the whole thing around, and let's say the engineer says, "No, I'm going to make my plane, and I'm going to make it because I got a good deal on a bunch of counterweighted props. I'm going to make my single engine aircraft. If that same scenario and the governor fails, mine's going to high pitch." Now, I'll put some stops in there so it doesn't feather, but I'll go to high pitch, right? I can see now we'd have the problem with manifold pressure going high, and it may be a little bit more difficult to try and manage the aircraft. Would you agree with something like that?
Still pull the throttle back. Reduce the manifold pressure.
Okay, still, yeah, but you're going to be losing some power, I think. I think it'd be harder to manage.
Maybe they took even that in consideration when they decided to put no counterweights on single engine prop.
Maybe I should have never asked. I'm going to put a note in here. Don't ever ask
Put a note in there for next year, yeah.
why.
Well,
Don't.
Because if you lose all that, it
Take up
will
half a
automatically
class,
always
figure
go
it
on
out.
low pitch, which is easier to fly.
This is, sorry.
Even for landing and everything, you rather want it in low pitch
That's what I
than
think.
always at high pitch.
By the way, this is called the Socratic method. So now I can check that box that I've done that. Teaching is called the Socratic method of teaching. All right, so the Macaulay prop. What about the Macaulay? Well, I think we can almost say this about all of these. It's similar. Similar to a prop that you probably don't know anything about at this point, non-feathering. Non-feathering model, but uses counterweights. Surprise!
Wait a minute, Kevin.
And
You're telling me you have counterweight?
and spring pressure to. All right, fill in the blank. Increase or decrease blade angle.
Increase.
You're just saying that because there's a big space. It's like what word would fit in there the best?
That's not how you put
They're like the same length.
I know, but it took you a long time to realize that, didn't it? Increase blade angle oil pressure to decrease.
2 more days.
Decrease. I don't know. Decrease what? Decrease blade angle. All right. Also has a longer piston to accommodate longer blade travel.
Probably the stroke, right?
Yes. Call it the stroke if you want. So we'll just stick to some basic facts here then. Prop is counterweighted and spring-loaded to feather if oil pressure is lost. All right, but that brings up a whole nother problem. What happens when I shut down a propeller that feathers when I lose oil pressure? Don't I lose oil pressure as I shut down?
I'd say so.
So how am I going to shut down my engine to keep oil pressure? I know. I'll pull the mixture back.
There you go.
And that way, I get an RPM rise before it falls and the oil pressure goes up. Then it quits and then the prop stays, right?
No.
No?
You can give it a try though.
Accumulators.
Accumulator. Nope.
Get it out of it.
Nope.
Prop
Nope.
lock.
What?
Prop lock.
Prop lock. That's the thing you wrap around the prop when you have your aircraft in Rio Linda to keep people from stealing it.
Or when you don't pay the rent fees.
Kevin, aren't you across the runway?
That's not Rio Linda.
That's not considered real, is it?
No. Rio Linda Airport's over there.
Over the bridge.
Yeah. To prevent feathering during shutdown, comma, a centrifugal latch is used. So what happens, and there are different types, but basically what the prop's going to do is, so when I bring it back to an idle, there's not as much centrifugal force. So springs will work to, it kind of works backwards, but, or springs will pull something in, we'll say, and I'll make up something. So there's not a centrifugal force. These latches that can come in and grab onto something. And then as I shut down, it's going to hold the prop in a low pitch. Not actually all the way on the low pitch stops. It actually goes a few degrees towards high pitch because it doesn't catch it all the way at the back. So it allows it to go forward. So then I start up the aircraft, and as I give it throttle and I bring it out of, say, I don't know, 900 RPM into the 1,000, 1,200 range, those centrifugal locks are going to be out of the way. Centrifugal force move them out of the way, and the prop is free to move through its whole range, all the way to feather, all the way to low pitch. And then it's going to work that way. Now, the thing is, if I actually shut the aircraft down in low pitch, so I bring the prop lever all the way back to low pitch, and then I shut it down, it's going to feather because I didn't have it far enough back into a low pitch to catch those locks. So if I got it right here, it's going to miss the locks and go to feather as I shut down. Now I've got to restart and feather. So if I have to restart and feather, that's going to be hard on the starter. And if you don't have an accumulator, which we'll talk about later, and no way to bring it back out of feather, then that's it. You just got to start it up in a feather position, which is hard on the starter. You got to start it there. It's going to be hard on the engine. Manifold pressure is going to be very high. Get it started. And of course, you should have your lever up in high RPM when you start it. And as you get oil pressure, it'll bring it back out of that feather high pitch position, back into the low pitch, and then you can shut it down and it'll catch the stops. Got that? I hope you wrote that all down.
One more time. I have a couple on
is there a point in which the propeller blade passes to where it's considered feathered, or is it? Because I'm thinking like you have a low pitch, high pitch, and then it goes to feather, which is completely.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like the prop works in this whole range, this whole 90-degree range. So plane of rotation. So here's 0 pitch angle. Here's 90, which is feather. So operating range, and I just got to make up some stuff right here. Operating range, we'll say, is like this in this area. So this is the operating range. It doesn't usually go to 0 unless it's got a beta range on it. We'll talk about that later, which is a reversing propeller. So so it has this operating range, and it's going to normally work there. Then when you go to feather, then it's going to go this is the feather area right here. So go to feather. So otherwise, it's not going to be, whoa, I go to low pitch, it's going to go all the way to like, 82 degrees. No, it doesn't do that. So it just doesn't do that. Is that what you're asking? 'Cause that's a pretty good question.
Yeah.
All right. Centrifugal latch is used. And why do I want a centrifugal latch? This prevents excessive loads. On the starter. Under about 900 RPM, the latch engages. Well, let me ask you super mechanics this question.
Oh, you're really gonna get it done now, aren't you?
No, I actually have some faith. Maybe some people can pull this one off. Is this my phone or Juan's phone? It's Juan's phone. Take this back. See so much of it. All right.
Why are you looking?
Okay, so this is very true on piston engines, right? I'm talking about piston engines and this drag on the starter. You guys studied turbines with Phil. You studied PT6s and stuff like that with props on it. What position you put the prop in when you shut down? How come? Go ahead. Why?
Because otherwise the propeller would keep on spinning forever and ever, probably 20 minutes or even longer. Because once the turbine is shut down and there's no resistance, it would just keep turning and turning and turning.
Okay, so you got this thing turning and turning. So, I mean, it looks kind of cool, doesn't it? What's the big deal?
Kind of for safety reasons. If someone wants to get closer to the
I'm very Darwinian when it comes to safety issues. No, I'm not. I take that back. Safety first. No, you're okay. So safety reasons. But I always think, honestly, my default is always, well, I haven't said it a lot around here, but I used to say, hey, if that thing's going to fall, throw yourself under it. Because if you get hurt, you'll heal while you sit at home and watch TV. I got to fix that. Right? So always default to the maintenance aspect.
About that?
Yeah.
Pre-turbine?
Yeah?
You use without the prop engaged, you're going to build oil pressure, and then you can use that too.
Yes, but I'm talking shut down. So we've shut down, and now the prop is just, because I've got it in low pitch, or technically a 0 degree blade angle, which would technically be called beta range. Beta is 0 to backwards. So I got this beta, it says there's 0 thrust on the thing. So it's going to spin for a very long time because there's a lot of mass going on there. So other than safety reasons, somebody walking into it, what's the big deal?
Also, you're not actually turning the engine, so you're not producing oil pressure, so there's no oil in the bearings.
No oil in the bearings is my big thing. So now you got this thing spinning up there that's not connected to the oil pump, or it's not, and so you don't want to do that. So that's why you always hear the guys with the turbines, as they shut down, boy, you hear that blade go right into full feather, and it just stops, right? And then when they start it up, they're going to start it up the same way and then bring it out of feather, and then it starts going. So, yeah, so it's going to be different. You do want it to go into feather if it's connected to a turbine. That's what they do. Shut that down. So it's different if you're talking about piston versus turbine. All right, so managed to somehow survive for 49 minutes. Take a break. I survived anyway.